I was born in Pakistan and I grew up as a Muslim, and all my life I was taught to follow Allah, and Muhammad is the final prophet of Islam. And I was taught that, and I believed that there was 4 books that came from heaven, but the final book was the Quran, and it was the final revelation. And so I used to go to study the Quran after school for 3 to 4 hours at a time every single day, because my family wanted me to be ingrained with the truth of what I believed. And the one thing I remember as a Muslim was that I was always opposed or brought up to oppose the deity of who Jesus is. The Quran talked about Jesus, but we could never call him the Son of God. That was blasphemy. In fact, that was the greatest sin that any Muslim could ever commit, was to confess that Jesus is the Son of God. And so that's the mindset I was brought up with. And I was brought up with, I wanted to be a servant of God. I wanted to obey God. I wanted to be obedient. I wanted His will for my life. I wanted to know just obey Him and submit to Allah. There's a hope in every Muslim heart, and was in mind that I would go to heaven, but I thought I could only go to heaven through good works. And so I would hope that God would one day have mercy on me. But there was no real guarantee. And one thing I remember, even as a young child, sitting on a couch in my living room, I was probably 5-6 years old, and I remember thinking that whoever God is, I wonder, is He a good God? How is He? I wanted I just inquired in my heart. I didn't really have an answer at that time. But I remember thinking thoughts like that, wanting to know more than what I did know about God or Allah, as I would say, as a Muslim. I wanted to have a higher education in my life, and I left the country for the purposes of education. And then later I got involved in business. And in business, some of the people I was connecting with and working with, many of them were Christians, or they believed that Jesus was the Son of God. Now this I did not like, because as a Muslim, this was an open confrontation, because I thought that they were deceived and that the Bible was inaccurate, that it was changed. And I remember telling them that the Bible's changed, it's inaccurate, that it's not correct, and that you should not call Jesus as God's Son, and that's blasphemy. And that's really where my first introduction to Jesus came along. Some people, I do remember, they had a peace about them. And not all of them, but some of them had some kind of peace I could tell that they had. And that, I was a little curious about that, but not enough to investigate. I was more interested in saying, let's bring these Christians and help them see the Quran. Let them accept Islam and submit to Allah. That is what I was trying to do. I was invited to, first I was invited to a church. And I said, no, I don't go to church. I'm a Muslim. Don't invite me to church. But you can come to a mosque if you like, I said to them. So then later they invited me, some Christian businessmen invited me to a business conference where there were successful people in business training on how to be successful in business. So I knew that I wanted education. I wanted to learn how to be successful. That's why I was getting more education. And so I went to this conference, and there was probably 20,000 people in this auditorium. And on the Sunday morning, they stopped the conference and they had this service. They called it a Christian service, which I thought that only occurred in a church or a building. So here was something that they were going to do that I didn't want to go to. But someone said to me, if you come to this service, you can have a front row seat. And as you sit in the front row, after this conference is over, you can keep your seat for the remainder of this business conference. So that was a good idea, because I was going to be there. Secondly, they said whoever's going to be speaking is a businessman. He's not a priest. He's not some kind of religious leader. He's just a businessman. And I thought, as a Muslim, well, how bad can that be to hear a businessman? So I went there to get my front row seat. And this man got up, and the first thing he said was, Jesus is the Son of God. Now that offended me as a Muslim. I got angry. And then he said, there's no name given by which you must be saved except the name of Jesus. And he said, if you reject Jesus, He goes, you will go to hell. And I did not like that at all. But he said one other thing. He said, but if you receive Jesus, then you are guaranteed to go to heaven and spend eternity with Jesus. Now that made me mad too. And that was the beginning of me hearing about Jesus and how they were very bold about him. There was a boldness about this Jesus. But I thought the man speaking was deceived. And I said, it's my responsibility as a Muslim to go speak to him and correct him, because I thought he was wrong. And so he did this invitation for people out of the audience to come to the front by the stage, and he basically was inviting them to come to Jesus. I didn't quite understand, but when he gave the invitation, I got up and I ran, and I was one of the first people there because I thought I could talk to the man now. But by the time I got to the front of this stage, I noticed hundreds of people started to come out of the aisles and they began to run to the front. And so when I got to the front, I got stuck to the front of the stage. And all these people were there. It was literally about 3,000 to 5,000 people. And I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe I should leave, but I couldn't. I got stuck. And I remember the businessman. He had tears in his eyes and he was looking at everybody, and he said, I want you to repeat this prayer after me. And he started his prayer by saying, Jesus is the Son of God. And I said, no, I can't say that. I'm a Muslim. So I said my kalma. I said, if they're going to say something like that, I'm going to say my kalma, which is the statement of faith of a Muslim. And I said that and I left there. And two of my Christian friends came to me and they wanted to give me a hug. And they said, congratulations. And I said, what for? And they said, well, you went to receive and become a Christian. I said, no, don't you ever call me a Christian. I'm a Muslim. And I remember saying to them, I said, the mountains can shake, the earth can move, but there's nothing on this earth that can make me say that Jesus is the Son of God. I went to another conference, and again they reserved me a front row seat for that Sunday morning. So I went there, and I realized that they give invitation after talking about Jesus being the way, the truth, and the life. They gave invitation to invite people to the front again, and I went to the front again. But that's when I realized that they were trying to win people to Jesus through business. And I made a decision as a Muslim that I would do the same thing, and I would hold meetings and preach from the Quran and give open invitation to Christians and other people to come to Islam, accept Muhammad as the final prophet, and to embrace Islam and submit to Allah. That's what I wanted to do as a Muslim. But I had to learn how they were doing it, because in business I was taught, learn from them who are already successful. But I noticed they had a lot of good results, and I wanted to learn what they were doing so I could learn and be integrate with their community and be able to do it for Islam. And that is how it all began. But then I went back to another conference, and I went to spy and to see how they do it. And I remember they were doing and talking about how Jesus is the Son of God, how anyone who believes upon Jesus or even calls upon His name will become a son or a daughter or a child of God. They would receive the right to become children of God. I remember they were talking about that. Then at the end, this businessman asked all the people in the audience to stand up, about 20,000. So out of courtesy, I stood up as well. And I knew now that he was about to give this invitation to the front like they normally do. And I knew I did not need to respond, because now I knew what it meant. So while I stood there and he began to invite people to this front, suddenly the living God showed up. And when God came, I knew with every fiber of my being, my very spirit, my soul, my very body, that I was standing before the Most High God. And His presence stood right before me, went right through me, encircled me. I felt ambushed, and I was alone with God. I had so many questions in my mind. I didn't understand what's going on. Why is God manifesting Himself? What's happening? I never experienced the majesty of God, but I knew that I was standing before Him. And I asked Him one question, and I said, God,